everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Urvashi and I work as a professional trainer and I provide trainings in front-end development technologies, that is HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React.js and Redux. Apart from that, I help candidates with interview preparation as well. So welcome to the 12th video of JavaScript of Let's Crack It with Urvashi series. And before I actually go ahead, I just want to thank all of you to, if you have seen the complete series, for me it's literally a motivation. Obviously, when you all see the video, I get comments, I get DM on Instagram. That is literally a motivation for actually going ahead and create more videos. So before we actually go ahead, I just want to show a lot of gratitude and thank you to all of you who are watching this video, who are watching this series. Thank you so much. Coming back to the video, in today's video, we are going to talk about forms and forms validation. This is a very important topic because every website has forms. So if you look at Instagram, if you look at Facebook, if you look at Twitter, if you look at Airbnb, every website, Amazon, every website has forms. And every form looks different because obviously it depends on the CSS that you're applying. But functionality part, it's very much similar because you will need JavaScript there to add the validation to your code, to your form. So if you learn this form and form validation, just remember you have done and learned a very important part of your website, that is forms and form validation, because every website has forms and form validation. So I've covered this topic in very detail. I've tried to cover all the possible inputs that I can have, and I've tried to added a lot of validations to it. So before we go to the video, don't forget to check out my interview preparation material. I've added the description below, so do check that out. Now let's get to the video. Hello everyone. In today's video, we are going to start with forms and form validation in JavaScript. So JavaScript uses these HTML forms to allow users to interact with web pages. JavaScript forms are the only way users can interact with their application. Even if I'm clicking on a button, even if I'm adding some data. For example, let's say I'm signing up into Amazon. So there I'm entering my ID, my password, my contact details, my address, and then I'm signing up in that application. And when I'm logging in, again, I'm adding some data in the input fields to log in that application. So that data that user is inputting is through the forms. So it is like a set of input values entered by the user. Or we can say it's like user is inputting the values. So next thing comes, we already have HTML forms. Why we need JavaScript there? So we need JavaScript there for the validation part. So validations are of majorly two types, front end and the back end. So back end validation is done at the back end, where you are checking the data types at the back end, what data is received, you're matching that data is correct or not. So that is happening at back end. But being a front end developer, we need to focus on the front end validation, or if you are a UI developer, UI engineer, we need to focus on the front end part. So it checks input by the user is correct or not. So again, there are many ways. For example, contact length that user is entering is should be of length 10. It should not be less than 10 or greater than 10. Or name should not have digits. Age value should not have alphabets. Email validation, password validation. All these validations are handled on the front end part. So what validation need to be added or checked is decided either by the developer or the business. Business means application requirement. For example, in some application, you will see last name is a mandatory field, and for some application, it is not. So it is totally dependent upon the business requirement or the application requirement. And definitely to fulfill this, we need events because we are going to create HTML form and we want something to happen from HTML. We need events. Even if I'm clicking on a button, that is also an event. So we can use two events here, like on submit, on click. We can use on change as well. With the forms, these are the majorly the events are being used. So let's see through the code, how can I create a form and how can I add the validation to my code. And forms are very important since every application uses form. Even if it's contact us form, it's sign up, login. These are the basic forms every application will have. So forms and form validation is a very, very important topic. If you really want to be good in JavaScript, again, every language has forms. So today we will see how forms and form validation is done in JavaScript. So let's see through the code. So here I have HTML file and external JS file. So here I have already created my HTML form which has following fields like first name, contact number and the age and a submit button. And this is my form. Let me run this. So this is how my form looks. Now definitely I want to add validation. So that is something we are going to handle through the JavaScript. So if you guys think about it, whenever user enter the data, at that time either user know that I've entered the wrong input, or when you click on submit, at that time user know that I've entered the wrong input. So today we are going to see how you can handle that through submit button. When you click on submit, how your form actually works, what actually happens. So when you click on submit button, when you enter the data, click on submit button, a function is called where all the validations are handled. So we are going to do the same thing. I will just write on click is equal to, let's say, validate function. So this is the custom function I'm going to create in my JS file. So I will create this function here. This will handle all my validation. Next thing comes on which thing we are going to add validation. We are going to add the validation on the input fields added by the user. So this is the data user is entering. So I will capture all these data one by one. And we know how to capture it. I will just write contact, let's say, is equal to document dot get element by ID. I will just copy the ID from here, its number. So I've already assigned the ID to each input field dot value. Then we have name, document dot get element by ID. Then I will add first name, dot value, and then I will add var age is equal to document dot get element by ID age dot value. So this is how I'm going to capture all my data. Now next task comes, once you get all the data, how we are going to add the validations. Now every developer has their own way of adding the validation. Directly they can start with if else conditions. Definitely we need condition statements to do the validation. As I said, there are many ways to validate. Every developer has their own way to add the validation. So the ideal way, the best way, and the best modular approach that you can do, and that will definitely going to handle the risk of missing out any validation. That is also reduced by this way. So this is the way I use. Again, this is not a mandatory that you have to follow the same way of handling the validations, but definitely you can go with this. So for that, we have to consider few variables like var form is valid. So we have this boolean value. So in fact, your form is validated or not is actually based on this one single variable, that is a boolean value. I will show you guys where this fits. Now I will create few methods. Let's say validate name. So I can do one thing, I can directly write if else conditions here, or I will create separate methods for validate name, validate contact, and validate email, validate age. I will create these functions outside. So this is the place where I'm calling them. This is the place. And this is the place I'm going to create them. So I'm just going to create these methods outside and I'm calling it from inside the validate function. So definitely whatever data user has entered, we need to pass these data here as well. Then only we can have if else conditions and we can add the validation. Now let me just pass those data from here and I'm going to pass this variable as well. I'll tell you guys why I'm sending this. So I will just say name, comma, form is valid. Then I will say contact, comma, form is valid. And then each comma, form is valid. So these are the arguments I'm sending and parameters I'm going to receive here. Now it's our choice to with same parameter name or different. So now I'm just considering the same name. So this is how I can pass the arguments and receive the parameters. So first of all, I will start with name validation. So I will check if name dot trim is equal to, let's say, empty. If it's empty, then I will just say form is valid is going to be false. That means form is not validated. And I will just show some error message. Now what I will do, I will create a space in UI to show those error messages. Because every time you enter wrong data, those messages are displayed in the UI. So I will just say ID is equal to, let's say, name error. I will have a similar IDs for contact and for my age. So I will just say contact error, and here I will say age error, and I will display the errors here. So I will just write document dot get element by ID. So in name error, I'm going to display dot inner HTML is equal to please enter valid, or please enter name for now. Else, if I can have as many conditions as I want, I can use regex, that name cannot have digits, and so on. I can add those regex. For now, I'm just adding else condition that my name is correct. So I will just say form valid is going to be true, and here I will say empty, because if the validation is true, that means name is validated, then there is no use of adding any error message. And let me just add one more condition. Let's say name dot length. Let's say name length should be greater than equal to 3. Now if you see, now I want name actually to be greater than 3. So this will be a form valid true and error should be empty. But what we do, we actually reciprocate the condition. We actually change the condition to not. So whatever the true condition we need, we make it not. That means if length is not greater than equal to 3, then I will say some error message will come. Please enter valid name. That's it. The reason I'm changing it, because I just want else part, only one part where I can say it's true and error message is going to be empty, because otherwise you have to keep on repetitively writing this. So what we actually do, we handle all the else, whatever the possible error messages that need to be shown, we change our condition accordingly. So if I'm not using not, so it will say if length is greater than equal to 3. That is the condition we really want. So I'm just making not, I'm adding a not outside it. That means if not greater than equal to 3, then it should say some error message. And else part is the only place we generally want that form is true and error message is empty. Otherwise, whatever the possible error messages I want to show, I will just change my condition accordingly. This is how I can handle my name. The similar logic will go in contact. So first condition is going to be same. I'm just copy and add this here. I will just say contact.trim. If it's false, then I will just change contact error. So it will be please enter contact number. Let's say name is less than greater than equal to 10. So here it will be please enter valid contact. Here I need to add one more condition, and contact dot length should not be less than. So it should not be less than 10. Otherwise, it will just say contact error. So I'm just taking two things, that it should be a contact number should not be empty, and if it's less than or greater than 10 and I'm adding not, means it's false, then it should say please enter valid contact. Else it will say it's a correct contact number. And same goes for age. For age, I will just say, I'm just copy paste the same part. I will just replace it with age. So here I will add age error, please enter age. And for age, I can add a condition like age length. Let's say age dot length is less than 2. Then I'm adding not, that means it should be less than 2. Otherwise, it should say please enter valid age, because the age length should not be greater than 2 eventually. Else, it's a correct age value. So this is how I can add the individual validation for my name, age, and contact. Now, next thing comes, once these all are individually validated, I need to return some check, some flags. That flag is what we are going to use as form is valid. That is the reason I created this form is valid flag or boolean value, because individually now I can send from each function. So I will just capture those values here. I will say var, let's say name bool is equal to. So the whole idea is if all the values are individually validated, only it should say my form is validated, otherwise not. So that's why I'm just returned This form is valid from each function. Now I can add if this name bool, and contact bool, and age bool. If all these three are validated, then you should just say console.log of, let's say, form is submitted. Else I will say console.log of please check fields. And here I will just write and true. So if all the cases are false, then over it will be true. So that's why I just added and true. Now if I refresh, I will click on submit. Here I will get the error message. So I will enter the data. Let's say Lina. Click on submit. Data is vanished. So here I've entered 10 digits number. So I click on submit. That will also vanish. So if I enter age, let's say 123. So it will give me please enter valid age. Or if I say this, it will say submit. So once I click on submit, I can see the data in console that my form is submitted. And if the data was not correct, it was saying please check fields in the console. Now I want to show all these messages in UI instead of console. And once user click on submit, form is submitted, these fields should be empty for other person to fill the form. So what I will do, I will create a p tag here in UI. Let's say if id is equal to form error. So here I will just say document dot get element by id dot inner html is equal to form is submitted. I will remove this line, and here I will just make these values empty. So I'm just making these input fields value empty. Now I will do one more thing. I will make this field please check all the fields if form is not submitted. If I run this, if I refresh, I can just write the data now. Here I will enter 2, and if I click on submit, here I can see form is submitted. So this is how I can validate my forms, and every input field I can validate. There is one more thing, I can have a on submit event on the form, and I can do the submission of my form from there as well. That is calling out this validate. The only thing is it default refresh the form when a form is submitted, and you need to pass where your form data is submitted some link or redirect link you can add there if you want to go with on submit, or you can go with on click as well. So this is how I can validate my forms. This is how I can add front end validation to my form. This is just a small example. You guys can try email validation, date of birth, like date of birth can have validation. It should not be greater than 2 days date. So such examples you guys can try. So this is what we have in forms and form validation. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching my video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share my channel. Do share it with your friends, family, aspiring developers, and any working professional who want to hone their skills in front-end development. And do check out my interview preparation material. You can come to my YouTube channel, see the videos for free, and you can definitely prepare for interviews at a minimal cost using my interview preparation material. I've added the description below, so do check that out. And thank you so much for watching my videos.